No, this is not a joke. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into episode number 11 of my 2022 college football initial rankings series. And my number 11 overall team is the Texas Longhorns, based on a number of factors that I'm going to explain to everyone. When I'm ranking these teams, I take a lot of things into consideration, especially the conference, the schedule. I like the way it sets up for Texas in 2022, and I know there's a lot of casual fans out there that say, oh, everyone does this with Texas. You know, they're always a preseason top 25 team, which is true, but actually this year it's different, and a lot of it has to do with Texas having a legitimate elite superstar quarterback that we're going to get into. But guys, what I do with these videos, go over their entire schedule. We're going to talk about Texas's toughest game in 2022, their current quarterback situation, a few breakout players I like for Texas. What is Texas's biggest question? And then I'll give one bold prediction for the University of Texas in 2022. They are my number 11 overall team. I understand it's an aggressive ranking, but I'll get into this and you guys will realize by the end of this video why I'm so high on Texas. Again, it's not just the team, it's the schedule, it's the conference. There's a number of things when I'm ranking these teams that go into it. So taking a look at Texas's schedule, they open up with a nice night game Saturday the 3rd against UL Monroe. That'll be an 8 o'clock start time on the Longhorn Network. Then, of course, the massive game with Alabama. Unfortunately for Texas, they got completely screwed with the start time being a big noon game, which is actually 11 a.m. Central Time in Austin, Texas. This game, I mean, this should be a 7:30 game on ABC, or at least like a 7:30 game on Fox. This big noon thing, it's such a travesty. It's ridiculous. You should not be playing this game on September 10th at 11 a.m. when the on-field heat index is going to be about 90 degrees. It's going to completely take the crowd out of it. It's going to be a very quiet crowd. I'm sure it'll be a sellout, but big win there for Alabama getting that game on at noon. Unfortunate for Texas. It was already going to be an uphill battle. And if you're Texas, it almost would be better. You know, if you're going to do a home and home with Alabama, you would want the game in Austin to be next year. It's like you're probably already going to lose this game with Quinn Ewers. This will be his second career start. If he starts week 1, his second career start will be versus Alabama. It's almost like you want to have the home game when Ewers is a junior, Xavier Worthy is a junior, Bijan's going to be gone, but still, it's tough. This is a home game. Alabama is an early 14-point favorite in it. You've got UTSA at home, another 8 o'clock game on the Longhorn Network. Interesting note about the Longhorn Network, when Texas moves to the SEC in 2025, the Longhorn Network is apparently dissolving. So it's just ending because the SEC network is part of ESPN and things like that. So I guess they're just ending it, but they get 2 Longhorn Network games. I'm sure those will be the only 2 games on Longhorn Network, you would think. UTSA, very winnable game. I mean, UTSA was a preseason top 25 team last year, but let's be real, folks. It's not going to be close. We've got Texas Tech on the road, so this will start their Big 12 schedule. It's a manageable game. You've got to win it. I think that the one word I would use to describe Texas and their boosters right now with the impending move to the SEC is desperate. Let me just get this done and then I'll talk. Let me do the schedule and then I'll talk about what I think. But at Texas Tech, very winnable. Versus West Virginia, that'll be a noon game on ESPN, I would guess. Maybe FS1 gets it, but very winnable. The Red River rivalry, I am very high on Texas' chances this year to beat Oklahoma. This is the year Oklahoma, new quarterback, although I do have a lot of respect for Dylan Gabriel. This is the year you got to beat him. new head coach, a lot of transfers, a lot of movement. I talked about Oklahoma yesterday when I said they were my 10th best team, but there's a lot of projection on Oklahoma right now. So much roster turnover. This is a year, if you're Texas, you got to beat them. They get Iowa State at home. You got to win that game. At Oklahoma State, you got to win it. I am not high on Oklahoma State this year. At Kansas State, that's a surprisingly tough game. Kansas State is a veteran team. It'll be surprisingly tough. You get TCU at home. Come on, you got to win those games. At Kansas, you know, it's funny. They lost to Kansas last year. We all know that, but Kansas is really bad. And then versus Baylor. So actually kind of a tougher schedule. Definitely tougher than Oklahoma's schedule because they go to Oklahoma State, they go to Kansas State, and then they get Baylor at the end of the year. I think they're going to crush Baylor or at least win pretty comfortably by the last game of the regular season. That's a Friday game. You know, you would think Quinn Ewers at that point, he'd be really settled into being a starting quarterback, and they would win that game fairly easily. We will see. But guys, when it comes to their toughest game, you know, it's the home game versus Alabama. When it, you know, in conference play, maybe that Kansas State game. Kansas State is going to be a good team. Also, the Oklahoma game, neutral site, one of those games. But overall, their toughest game is very clearly Alabama, the current quarterback situation. So this is a team that got a very, superstar prospect quarterback in Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers was a perfect 1,000 overall recruit in the class of 2022. He ended up reclassifying in the class of 2021, maintained being the number one overall player in 2021, and then ended up at Ohio State where he transferred after his true freshman season. He only played 2 total snaps at Ohio State. So you would think with Steve Sarkisian, this is huge for him and for Texas recruiting. You need to develop Quinn Ewers. You need to develop him because you got to sell that on the recruiting trail. Right now, it looks like you're in a pretty good spot for Arch Manning, the number one quarterback in 2023. Again, the one word I would use to describe Texas, desperate. They're very desperate to win right now with the impending move to the SEC. The schedule is only going to get harder. You've got to try and crack into a New Year's Six bowl game this year. You have the talent. You have the three-headed monster, possibly the second most talented combination of a QB, running back, wide receiver, Ewers, Bijan, Xavier Worthy. We all know Ohio State is more talented with Stroud, JSN, and Trevion, but I would say they're in contention for the number 2 best trio. That is a ton of talent. Bijan last year, 1,100 rushing yards, 6 yards per carry, 11 touchdowns. Everyone was zoned in on stopping him. He still had those numbers. He is a superstar running back. And then Xavier Worthy, 12 touchdowns as a true freshman, 16 yards per catch, almost 1,000 total yards. That's elite production. This is an absolutely loaded team. And then they have done some work in the transfer portal, obviously with Ewers, but also with another receiver, Isaiah Naylor from Wyoming, who is a big-time, big-bodied receiver. And he was ranked really high from Wyoming. Don't be fooled. He's a really good receiver. It's going to be a great 1-2 punch with Xavier Worthy. They should both help out Ewers along with Bijan. Very, very talented team. When it comes to the defense, the quarterback situation, guys, I'm a little off course. The quarterback situation, they're saying right now it's a QB battle between Hudson Card and Ewers. It's not. It's basically a fake QB battle. Sarkisian is trying to push Quinn Ewers to make him a better player, but there is 0% chance Quinn Ewers doesn't start week 1. He's starting week 1. They're doing this whole thing, it's a quarterback battle, whatever. It's not. They're starting Ewers week 1. They want to make Ewers better, so they're telling him, you got to beat out Hudson Card. Hudson Card's a nice backup, but there's 0 chance they would start Hudson Card. They need Ewers to start, and they need Ewers to produce for recruiting and for the future of their program and for Steve Sarkisian to sell that he's actually a legitimate QB guru. That's the bottom line, guys. This is a 5-star recruit, number 1 overall player that transfers back in. You need to sell it. When it goes to a few breakout players, I'm looking at someone on the defense. This was really concerning. When you look at Texas last year, the total sacks, they just generated no pressure. Their sack leader was Ben Davis, who's actually a Bama 5-star bust transfer. He transfers to Texas, and he had a grand total of 2.5 sacks and was their leader in sacks. 2.5. That is very concerning. So a breakout player, maybe Vernon Brogdon, the big defensive tackle. I followed him as a recruit. He was a really good recruit. Maybe he steps up and does something. But yeah, on the defensive side of the ball, they did also get Ryan Watts, who's a transfer, and also Terrence Brooks, a true freshman. Both of those guys are cornerbacks. Terrence Brooks, they kind of stole from Ohio State with the NIL thing, flipped him on National Signing Day. Ryan Watts, they got him in the transfer portal from Ohio State. So both of those guys kind of coming over. We will see if they're able to do anything. But the biggest question mark for Texas, I mean, there are a number of things with the defense, but I'm going to say, how good is Quinn Ewers? Everybody wants to know. There's been so much talk about Ewers. Is he really a generational, franchise-type quarterback? And it's like, could he be a Trevor Lawrence type to where he takes this program truly to the next level? And how good of a coach really is Steve Sarkisian as a QB guru, also as a head coach? But it comes down to Quinn Ewers. Is he really a superstar? We've talked about him for years. He reclassifies. He plays 2 snaps at Ohio State. It's put up or shut up. You've got 2 years at Texas. Texas, the word of the day within their program, they are desperate. You have to win these games. You've got to win them. You have to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. I'm talking about the Iowa States, the Oklahoma States, the Kansas. You have to beat these teams. You have to win these games. TCU, beat Kansas, obviously. Baylor. These are just games. It's inexcusable. You have way more talent than these teams. And again, this is my overall point. Casual fans like to say, well, you do this every year with Texas. And it is true. We do this every year with Texas where we overrank them. But this year is different. If you follow college football, you would know Texas has not had a quarterback like this in forever where Quinn Ewers is this talented. Now, he hasn't proven it on the field, but if you're a perfect 1,000 recruit, this kid is really, really talented, and that's a major difference from last year when Texas was getting a lot of hype. They didn't have the quarterback. Now, theoretically, they do have the quarterback, and part of the reason I'm ranking them 11th because of that Big 12 schedule. There's SEC teams, I think, that could be better than Texas, but Texas is going to have such an easier schedule being in the Big 12, you would think, although they do have, again, some rough road games. I will say that. Yesterday I did Oklahoma. Oklahoma had an extremely manageable schedule. This schedule, while it's manageable because it's the Big 12, and I'm not high on the Big 12, I mean, at Kansas State and at Oklahoma State, you would want one of those games to be at home. And then you'd say, well, we would rather have a different road game like at West Virginia. So the schedule it's manageable, but there is some tough road games. The way I look at it, I'd say week 1, let Quinn Ewers go out there and play basically the entire game. I mean, you have to ramp him up. Obviously, if you're up 56-0 in the fourth quarter, you can take him out. But you want Quinn Ewers to get confidence. You want to see 2 passing touchdowns to Xavier Worthy, get Bijan some touches, but keep Bijan fresh. The Alabama game is going to be a loss. You're hoping to just keep it close. If you're Texas, I know these games are scheduled like 4 or 5 years in advance, but I don't know why you're scheduling a home-and-home with Alabama when your program's been down for so long. If you want to schedule a good SEC team, schedule A&M. What Miami did scheduling A&M, they might actually be able to beat A&M. If Texas faced Texas A&M this year, I think Texas could beat Texas A&M. But you're facing Alabama. I just don't understand. I know it's 4 or 5 years in advance, and I don't want to discourage teams from playing tough out-of-conference games, but I don't know what you're doing. You have no business scheduling Alabama, with Bryce Young and Will Anderson. It's going to be very tough. So they're going to start the season 1-1. UTSA is a win, and then you get into the conference schedule, and the first 2 games are very manageable. You have to start off 2-0 at Texas Tech versus West Virginia. West Virginia might be a little fun with JT Daniels, we'll see, but you're at home. Then you get the big game, the rivalry game. That might make or break your season. That might make or break your chances at a New Year's Six Bowl versus Oklahoma. That'll be a noon start time. I don't know why it's listed as TBD. Unless maybe ABC wants to change the start time and make it at 3:30 or 7, but I would imagine that the Red River rivalry, I can never say that word, Red River rivalry. It's a tongue twister. That game's normally always at noon. Then you've got Iowa. I'm not a fan of Iowa State this year. They're at home. You got to win it. Those are 2 tough road games. They are. They're tough road games. You do get a bye in between them. So there's a bye in between Oklahoma State and Kansas State. But I could see them going 1-1 in those 2 games. Even if they beat Oklahoma, I could see that. TCU at home, you got to win it. At Kansas, you got to win it. You know what? I'll bet someone. How about this? I will bet someone who's a Texas hater. If Kansas beats Texas, I will give you $100. If Texas beats Kansas, all I want is $1. But I want the dollar signed by Quinn Ewers. I want the dollar signed by Quinn Ewers, Bijan Robinson, and Xavier Worthy. That's what I want. And send it in the mail to me. But I'll make that bet with someone. I'll give you $100 if Texas loses to Kansas again. There's no way. I know it's a road game, but come on. And then versus Baylor. I'm not really all that high on Baylor this year. I think they lose 4 or 5 games. With Baylor, it's always normally like every other year they're good. Maybe I'm making that up. That's just what it feels like. It feels like one year they're good. Like last year they made the Big 12 championship. This year they're going to be down. Maybe I made that up. Maybe they're normally always good. But I know they had a dark period with that Art Briles situation, and they've got a very good coach now. But we'll have to see, guys. And again, when it comes to me ranking them 11th, it's just the 3-headed monster. It's Xavier Worthy, it's Bijan, and it's Quinn Ewers. It's the schedule. The Big 12 schedule is very manageable. You do have a very tough non-conference game versus Alabama. You're not going to beat Alabama. Let's just call it what it is. But still, when casual fans say, "Oh, Texas is back," and you do this every year, you have to understand, Texas has never had a quarterback like this. This is a generational quarterback, Quinn Ewers. We'll see how they do. Maybe they're going to be 6-6 again, and you can make fun of me. I don't really care. These are my personal rankings. I spend millions and millions of hours watching game footage, guys. I do, to when I rank these things. So that is going to do it for this video. My number 11 preseason team is Texas. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.